Hey, Star Wars fans and Rule the Galaxy fans, welcome back to chapter 131 of the Rule the Galaxy podcast. It's Joe in the pilot seat as usual, and we've got some great co hosts tonight, and we've got a great guest, somebody we're all very excited to have on. So, lots of things to get through tonight or today, whenever you're listening to this podcast. But again, it's chapter 131 of the Rule the Galaxy podcast. As always, follow us on Twitter at Rule the Galaxy SW. Email us rulethegalaxysw@gmail.com, and on Facebook and on YouTube, which this show will be on very soon. Just Rule the Galaxy. Check us out there. We'll be getting more and more listeners, subscribers, followers across both the podcast and YouTube. So thank you very much. Matter of fact, my good friend Steve Glosson, who was on the show recently, said he was listening to last week's show and actually watching it on YouTube, and he enjoyed it. So, Steve, thank you for giving us a view there. So, as we're going along here, I'll just go around the horn and get you connected with some of our regular co-hosts. Nick Shesky. Nick, thank you for waking up from your nap and joining us on Rule the Galaxy.
You make me sound like I'm a bum. I told Joe before we jumped on, I feel like I'm going under the weather with something, and I fell asleep, which is very uncharacteristic. But other than that, I'm doing good. We're about 2 weeks out from almost 2 weeks to the day from baby number 2 coming. And so life is crazy, and I wish I was more plugged into the Star Wars happenings all the time. But right now, every day is a new adventure. So we're taking it one day at a time, figuring it out.
That's good. Great news right there. And we'll go to the next guy who's got a baby coming soon as well. Our good friend from Philly, DDoc. How are you, DDoc?
Yep, doing good. Yeah, baby number 3 will be here in just about a month or so. Yeah, we're May 11th. So me and Nick are going to be right around the same time. So
there you go.
They'll take the torch for us, and they'll be the same age, decades from now.
That's right.
How was your wife letting you go to the ICCC with baby coming within the week that you leave?
Listen, she is the one who is pushing me to go to it, man. So
that's awesome.
I told her, I said, you better not go into, I'll say for our first 2 kids, she did go literally day of the due date. But knowing my luck, we're going to be there at a Star Wars convention, and I'm going to get a phone call that I'm in Nashville and my wife is in labor. But she's the one who's pushing me to go. She's the one who's buying the plane ticket. So there we are.
Hey, the galaxy works in mysterious ways. It definitely does. You know what? You hear a lot from us all the time. We've been really blessed over the past couple of years to get some great guests in here, either people who work with things related to Star Wars, who have done audiobooks, who've been involved with novels, behind the scenes on other things. Tonight's one of those gentlemen that we all sit there and go, wow, we're talking to this guy. We've read his books. We know his name, and we're just excited for him to be here and just take some time and do some interviews with us. Mr. John Jackson Miller. John, thank you for being on Rule the Galaxy.
Hey, thanks very much. My youngest kid actually graduates high school in May, so I don't really have a comparable thing going on. Although
you and me are in the same boat.
Well, I'm actually having to try and balance things right now because graduation is Star Wars Celebration weekend. And so on the one hand, I really want to go. On the other hand, I really need to stay. And so I'm trying to figure out how I do both at the same time.
If only there was one of those things like in Star Trek that would help you beam yourself to LA and go see.
I've said many times the transporter is storytelling genius, and I would pay for one. I'd even pay a subscription for one.
Yes,
that would show up on my credit card bill, and I would never remember what it was for. But I know that it was something I wanted. So
well, John, I tell you what I like to do to start things off, and not to just throw you under throw the gauntlet at you here, but we all did some research to go along with. Obviously, we've read the Kenobi book, we've read the New Dawn book, that really stood out to us. But you've done so many different things. And by the way, did you get your master's from LSU? I'm just throwing that out there real quick.
I did. Awesome. It's over here on the wall.
Good. My son is a huge LSU fan, and now obviously he didn't get his master's from there, but he loves the football program and is very involved with that. So that's good. I'll be happy to tell him you're part of the LSU family with that a little bit. So,
My senior year of high school, at this point, we were down in Baton Rouge to see the NCAA regionals, and we were actually Memphis fans, but we were there to play LSU because for back then you could still actually have a home. I guess you still can have a home game in your regional, and
Sure.
the LSU fans were so obnoxious to us and so horrible. I knew I had to go there one day. But it actually worked out because I got there at the same time Shaquille O'Neal got there, and I was there exactly all the time Shaq was there. So yeah, he went on to bigger and better things. I just went on.
No, hey, that's a good time to be there. So real quick, I was looking online. You were posting. I'll talk about it in a minute. I was at the Great Ohio Toy Show in Xenia, Ohio this last weekend with some of our other co-hosts and one of our listeners. What event were you just at this last weekend?
I was just in Mid-South Con in Memphis. I'm from Memphis originally. I live in Wisconsin and have lived for about 28 years at this point. But I have been going back, pretty much every year that they've had the show for the last 17 years. I go all the way back to, before that basketball tournament. So and yeah, at this point, I think we realized that I have traveled something like 28,000 miles to go to the show round trip. And so in 2019, I was the Toastmaster. Wasn't planning to do it or be the Toastmaster this time. But just the way things worked out with cancellations and stuff, they said, "Can you come do it this time?" And it's like, okay, sure. And was able to do some panels and sell some books, and we had 3 years of pent up demand. So I don't think we've ever moved as many books at one Mid-South Con as this time, because I had 3 years of Star Wars and Star Trek stuff that had come out in the meantime.
No, that's great. I like to give props to all these cons that go on, because we're going to be at the ICCC, as DDoc mentioned earlier. We're going to be at the ICCC in Nashville, end of April, beginning of May, and we're going as a group, as a podcast, and getting a booth and doing some things. So we're really excited about it. So yeah, it looked like you were having a good time there. If I'm not mistaken, go ahead.
I will note very quickly, if you hear anything, we're in the middle of a thunder ice storm at the moment here in Wisconsin. So
no worries. And if anything cuts out,
I'm hearing the rumbles over here. I'm like, okay.
Well, it's great because we're in Indiana. That means that stuff's gonna sweep our way from Illinois, Wisconsin. It'll be hitting Michigan, Indiana soon enough. If you don't mind, correct me if I'm wrong. Did you do a Star Wars My Way with Scott Rifen? Was that you who did that with Scott Rifen years ago?
I know Scott. I know Scott Rifen, and I can't remember. Was it a podcast or was it an interview? Yeah, I more than likely did. I know Scott. Yeah.
Oh, that's
it would have been some time ago.
Yeah, no, and that's okay. I just was going back and remembering that I'd listened to that years ago, and I thought it was so great. You telling kind of, if you want, your feedback, or not your feedback, but just how you got into all of the things you do, because you really explained it very well in his podcast. But I think for our listeners, going from the comics industry and the price, the price guide kind of things and all those kind of things. If you don't mind, give a quick synopsis of that background leading you into Star Wars, Star Trek, and other things.
Well, I grew up, as I said, in Memphis, where I was just at the convention this weekend was in the same neighborhood where, I first saw Star Wars. Elvis Presley first saw Star Wars, or the only time he saw Star Wars probably was in the same theater where I did, although he was able to get in before I could because he was able to get them to close the theater down at night so he and his friends could watch movies after midnight.
Nice.
But yeah, I was a Star Wars fan as a kid. Star Trek developed later for me fandom wise, just because it wasn't in first run when I got to it, and so that sort of comes along and fills that space in between the original series and the prequel movies, and so in the meantime there, I am doing fanzines as a kid and mini comics. Go on to after that master's degree, I go back to journalism, where I edit magazines for the comics industry and the games industry. So a magazine called Comics Retailer, later called Comics and Games Retailer, which is a trade magazine for the comics industry. I still have a lot of the material that I used to write about then is on another website that I still run called Comicron, which has all the sales charts for the business going all the way back into the day. Also worked on Comics Buyer's Guide with Don and Maggie Thompson, who were sort of the co-founders of Comics Fandom. And then also I ran Scry magazine for a while. That's the card game magazine for Magic the Gathering, and Star Wars, the collectible card game, and various other things. Those are sort of my first official or semi-official connections to Star Wars there. Got a chance to write for Marvel. Wrote Iron Man for a year. Iron Man led to me getting a chance to write for Dark Horse for comics for Star Wars. I did a single issue of Star Wars Empire that led to me getting the giant the thing that's now in the giant book I have back here, the Knights of the Old Republic series that wound up running 57 issues in various iterations, and is now collected in that big omnibus. Knights of the Old Republic led to me getting a chance to write prose for Star Wars. So you have the the Knight Errant novel, the Knight Errant comics, the Lost Tribe of the Sith short stories, the Lost Tribe of the Sith comics, then the Kenobi novel, the New Dawn novel, and then a lot of short stories and novellas, such as we had I've had short stories in the From a Certain Point of View books. A lot of various short stories I wrote for the magazines have been reprinted now in a couple of hardcovers that came out from Titan last year. And then also I did a novella for the episode 8 book that was called Canto Bight. And so, in the meantime, while in between all of that, and some other, smaller Star Wars comics and game projects, I've also done work for Star Trek and Battlestar Galactica and various other things. My most recent comics full-length graphic novel was the 40th anniversary book for Battlestar Galactica called Counter-Strike. And then my most recent novel for Star Trek is the novel for the Star Trek Picard series. The book is called Rogue Elements, and it's a story of Cristobal Rios, the ship's captain from the Picard series, and how he got his starship, the La Sirena. So it's been a busy few decades here.
Wow.
I'm going to let Nick and DDoc ask some questions of you because, of course, as usual, I monopolize the time here. But do you ever not find yourself writing? Because it sounds like for the past 30 years, you've just been writing.
I got right back from the convention yesterday afternoon and was writing last night because I'm on deadline. And these things all pile up together sometimes. I'm working fast now because I've got deadlines to hit, and then I've also got my next thing out the door is next week, as we're recording this. I'll be doing at the end of next week is Star Trek Mission Chicago, which is sort of their their Star Wars celebration. In fact, it's even run by the same company, Reed. At least that one is something I can drive down to.
You got it. I was just in Chicago and I saw the billboards everywhere with William Shatner and George Takei, I believe.
Yep.
They're going to be attending that, so that's pretty cool. So,
I had a nice conversation with George just a couple of months ago, or a few months ago at Knoxville, Fan Expo Knoxville, I think it was. It's hard to know what the names of these shows are anymore, but I just say he was just so wonderful to talk to. It was wonderful.
That's awesome. That is awesome. I mean, that's just great. DDoc, Nick, I'm going to let you guys steal the floor for a minute. Any questions from all this stuff that John's talked about so far, or another question for him that you might have?
Well, so John, I have a bunch, but first, I'm staring at the Kenobi poster behind you.
Yep.
We've all listened to Kenobi. I say we listen. Joe, myself, DDoc, we all do the audio books. I've read paperback books. Really, this is so fun for me because it's, novels are what kept me in Star Wars for so long, right? So reading, all the Bane trilogy, which I know you didn't write, but like reading all that stuff has kept me really engaged with Star Wars. I'm curious for you if you could just tell us about your writing process. Okay, so like take Kenobi, for example. Maybe it's easier just to hone that in. That's during the Legends phase. Yeah. It's pre-Legends. Tell us a little bit about how that came about and like what a process looks like for you to go, okay, from ideation to, hey, I've released this book and this is.
Well, that one's extremely complicated because it was originally going to be a graphic novel. It was not going to be a novel at all. It was Dark Horse's 20th anniversary coming up in 2007 and Star Wars's 30th anniversary coming up in 2007. So in October, I think it was October 5th, 2006, and I know that date for a reason. We did the I was having a conversation with Dark Horse and my editor there, Jeremy Barlow, about me doing an original graphic novel that would be about Boba Fett or somebody like that, that could be done for this event year. We got talking about Westerns with regard to Boba Fett and then Westerns in general. And then I just wrote back, an email that had the header, the Ben Kenobi Western. And I had in what was about a 4 or 5 paragraph message, basically the broad strokes of the novel. And, he said, "But now you're talking," when he responded. And so I went away and started writing a plot for it. And, I finished the first draft. He looked at it, said, let's keep working on it. I did a second draft, keep working on it. The third draft was 50 pages long and it had almost everything, not all of it, but it was like 95% of the way to what the novel is. And we realized at that point, first of all, there's not going to be room to do this in a comic. It's going to be 500 pages long because there's just lots of atmosphere, lots of scenes where nothing is necessarily happening, and that's a feature and not a bug. That is the one thing that you always see in when if anybody doesn't get the novel, it's usually because they say, "Wow, it's slow," and Obi-Wan actually literally tells you in the opening that he feels time slowing down because that's where he is. The more that Tatooine becomes an exciting place, the less it becomes Tatooine, or at least the Tatooine that we knew from the first movie. And so I realized, okay, this is just not going to fit anyway. Jeremy got the franchise to do the Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull adaptation, and he said, "You've been asking to do this whenever there's a movie. You take this instead. We'll put Kenobi on the shelf and we'll come back to it at some point." That's what I did, and we ended up not coming back to it. It came up again after I did the Knight Errant novel. I said, well, if we're looking for another novel, here's an idea I've got. They weren't ready to look at it yet. They were ready to look at it in 2012 when, we're just before the Disney buyout. They're looking to focus in on the original characters with novels and not so much, various parts of the timeline that I had been doing. And if you'll look back at the books that came out at the time, there is that dynamic going on. There's no pun intended, there's a solo novel for Han, there's a novel for Leia, there's a novel for Luke that were greenlit in this period. Two of them came out before the Legends changeover, one of them came out after. But Kenobi, I suggested, well, I've got the Ben Kenobi Western, here it is. And it went through rather quickly. We announced the book, before I had really started writing it, but I knew what it was going to be. The only thing we added really were just a couple of scenes, the prologue, the crate dragon scene, and then we took a device that I did have in the original plot of the meditations, and Jennifer Heddle said, let's do a lot more of those. So because they're the only place in the book where we really hear what Obi-Wan is thinking. It's Jennifer Heddle, who's the Lucasfilm fiction editor. And there you go. And the book comes out at the end of August in 2013. And it is getting a re-release in trade paperback form as part of this the Essential Legends collection. That book will be coming out a week from today as we're recording this, which is April 5th, 2022. And that is exactly 15 years and 6 months after that original email.
Holy cow.
Wow.
Yeah, I don't know if anybody planned it, but there it is.
Well, I'm going to throw this over to DDoc, but before I do, I will just let you know, growing up, same age pretty much as you are, Luke was my guy. Like, yeah. I grew up a blonde-haired, blue-eyed kid in Indiana farmland area, yeah. And I thought Luke is my guy. I envision myself, I dream to be like this guy. I have aspirations to be this character. And then as my son grew up and I took him to see the prequels, and then Clone Wars came out, I really, Ewan, and then James Arnold Taylor, and then this book made it to, these things made it to where, wow, I can't decide between Luke and Obi-Wan anymore. I'm a house divided because I love both of those characters so much. And this book meant so much to me when it came out because I felt at the time it really dug into and made that character have even more depth before we transitioned over to that Alec Guinness kind of time frame of him there. So just my 2 cents before we hand it over to Dave. But DDoc, do you have some quick questions for John?
Yeah. So what actually, I'm new to the novels. These guys are the reason why. And I'm actually currently on the Kenobi one, which has the new cover art on it, actually.
The cover art's already changed everywhere. So
yeah. But like, as you were writing that, did you, I know you said you had previously written it and it was sitting for a little while, but did you ever feel the weight of it? Like, man, like I'm continuing this story of Kenobi and this extremely important character. And like, what were your nerves like at all about it? Like, did you have nerves? Cause you sound pretty like confident about it. Really.
The thing is, at the time I was kind of feeling like, well, I was more or less at the end of what I was going to be doing with Star Wars, because I had just done, I had just gone through a year. I think 2012, I had 3 different mini series or comic series at Dark Horse, because I had a Knights of the Old Republic thing, I had a Lost Tribe of the Sith thing, and I had a Knight Errant thing, and I didn't have anything lined up for after that. And I was at that Star Wars celebration where I proposed Kenobi, and I was like, well, this might be the end of this. So maybe there's a bit of panic that if this doesn't work out, that might be the end. But then on the other side of it, you kind of have that feeling all the time that every story you do might be the last story you do. So you might as well try and do the best you can anyway. You can't count on anything else coming out. And so I will say that I never really had any doubts about that story while it was working through. It was not something where I had to go back and rewrite a lot or change a lot beyond stuff that we had at the end. I got to the end of it and I said, there's not a word of it I would change. So, that's not always the case for sure. But I think it's I did it about as I accomplished what I wanted to accomplish with it. Let's just say that.
You got it. DDoc or Nick before? Go ahead, Nick.
Yeah. So rapid fire now. Now Disney buys out Lucasfilm. It becomes Legends. Fast forward to, what was it, 2020, 2021. You're watching The Mandalorian season 2, and you're watching the first episode where they go and they take out a crate dragon. Are you watching this going like, yo, what the? I wrote about this in a book years ago, and now this is happening and it's here. And I'm just curious what your thoughts are on it.
I would be if I had seen it. I haven't. No, I'm so far behind on so much stuff.
Oh, I just spoiled it. Then.
Well,
No, that's okay.
That's, yeah.
No, that's okay. There you go. I would be surprised if they didn't have a scene like that. No, I am so far behind on so many things, and generally, lately I've been doing mostly Star Trek, so I'm up to the minute on, or have been up to the minute on a lot of the CBS streaming series, but otherwise I get to them when I get to them. I saw the first of the Boba Fett's. Weirdly, I actually, for fun, am more likely to watch something that I have no involvement in whatsoever. Or not involvement, but no real connection to, other than,
Right.
well, for one thing, the Marvel shows, I've got to watch those, because if I don't, I'll be lost forever.
Yeah.
And that's kind of, if you get even a couple of years behind on that, you're toast. I still haven't seen, Black Widow or Eternals or the latest Spider-Man, and I'm feeling like I'm going to be completely lost if I go into the theater for anything else right now. But a lot of this stuff or a lot of these things are kind of well, they're the scenes that you would expect to see, probably. So I'm not surprised that they did a moment like that.
Well, if it makes you feel any better, I was watching that with my dad when it first came out. Again, he's not a huge, Star Wars reader by any means, but he's watching, these Tuskens and Mando take out a crate dragon. He's like, this is so cool. I'm like, I've seen it already. I've seen it right here. And it happened back in freaking 2013.
Oh, that's very good. That's very good.
Oh, and to follow along with that, and you mentioned, and so we'll bypass this really quickly, but secondary to the Mando series with the Boba Fett series, I'm watching those first 4 episodes going, this feels like I'm watching the Kenobi book, except it's the Boba Fett with the interaction with the Tusken Raiders. So I won't spoil any more of it for you, because you've only watched it first, but it definitely, I mean, Nick and I both were sending texts. We were like, does this not feel like the Kenobi book just mixed into Mando and Boba Fett? I mean, it was just awesome. So it did lay some groundwork. And I would say, with this book being Legends now, I still consider it headcanon until they tell me different, but it's so good to see that Lucasfilm / Disney did mine things from this book, because it was rich in things you could take out of it. So that's my 2 cents on that right there. DDoc, did you have something else? Because I was going to ask him about A New Dawn. So you go. Okay. So we just talked about Kenobi. We talked about how it was finishing up that run, and here comes Legends, because now we're moving on to this whole new thing. And we hear that there's going to be a whole new series of books that now follow along with canon. And for me, a guy who's been reading since, the Han Solo trilogy and Splinter of the Mind's Eye, all that stuff meant something to me from the 70s, the 80s, the Thrawn trilogy. I felt like, take the knife out of my chest, because all those books meant something to me, including the Kenobi book. And then they say, we're going to start fresh. And they hand it over to a young man and say, create a new book, be the first one to bring a new novel to us. Again, going back to nerves, thought process, everything like that, and it being Rebels characters. What was it like to be involved with A New Dawn and starting that process of being the start of the new canon for Lucasfilm and Disney?
Well, the timeline is somewhat different than all of this, because Kenobi had come out in the fall of 2013. They did not make the decision about Legends until the spring of 2014, when New Dawn was already 2/3 of the way done.
Really?
Oh yeah. No, I had begun working with the Lucasfilm story group. So, I had Dave Filoni and Greg Weisman and Simon Kinberg reading the outline and providing me with notes. And I did a conference call that Dave was in on about what I could do or should do relating to Rebels, because I had the story Bible and everything. And, I chose that I wanted to do something, of all the stories I could have done that they said I could have done, I said, yeah, let me do where Kanan and Hera meet, because it's well enough back in the background where I'm not going to collide with your stories later on. And, I only have to really get the characterization right for two characters that I have not seen before. And so, I was 2/3 of the way there. The book, at least in my mind at that point, was either going to be called Loose Cannons, which of course is kind of funny, if you think about it, or it was going to be called Rogue Elements, which of course is the name of my Picard novel, because I don't waste anything.
That's awesome.
And what happened is they said, okay, look, we can't. We cannot mine the new Jedi Order novels for the sequel movies, or at least they didn't say that even. I understood they couldn't do it because no one could expect that you would go to a director and say, here, we need you to make $1 billion film, and the opening crawl has to be 60 feet long, or rather 6 minutes long.
Yeah.
And it's going to say that, oh, by the way, Han and Leia had 3 kids, 2 of them are dead, and 1 of them killed one of the others. And by the way, Chewie gone too, and nobody was going to put, viewers in that position. Nobody's going to put the director and the filmmaker in that position. Something had to be done. And the fact is, it really only impacted the stuff that came after Jedi. I mean, I'm not saying that anything beforehand was not impacted, or is official or anything else. But by calling it Legends, as I refer to it, it gets into this sort of, I call it the Skyfall option, which is in the movie Skyfall. You see James Bond's car from Goldfinger, and just the sight of it is enough to imply that the events of Goldfinger happened, but very clearly it cannot be the same exact events that Sean Connery experienced. It's very likely it was not Daniel Craig, out there playing golf with Odd Job. But as they said, Legends may be true in part, in whole, or maybe we're just mining parts of it. Sure. It's using the continuity for concepts, for planets, for technology, for Easter eggs, sure, for callbacks here and there. But when you do these things, it does not automatically deem them into existence. I think it is very likely that something like my Kenobi story, which, by the way, when the Kenobi novel came out, it was the first novel that had the Legends banner on it. I actually saw a version of the paperback. I mean, when the paperback came out, I actually saw a version of the paperback, not printed, but a PDF that did not have the Legends banner on it, because it was so close to when they made this decision.
It's crazy.
So it is easy for anyone who wants to believe that yeah, probably something like what happened in the novel. 99% of it happened. Maybe some of the Shara and Het stuff is not, relevant, or maybe, there's callbacks in there to Lost Tribe of the Sith and Knights of the Old Republic. Well, even though Knights of the Old Republic is still sort of out there because we have the Old Republic game, nobody's saying that, that just because you have the events of the story in, that does not mean everything it's sub-referenced is all in as well. Anyway, so what happened is, 2/3 of the way through the novel, we changed the name of the book to A New Dawn. I fly out to California to do a video with Timothy Zahn about the end of this previous era and the process that I was going through with the story group for the new books. And when I went home and finished the book, I didn't really change a lot because to reflect what we were doing, because I always write books anyway as if they're the first novel that anybody's ever read. And I try to make them stand alone. I don't think that, even though there was, there's a reaction online that happened then, and happens with just about anything that ever happens these days. Most of it was not directed at me because, I think I had spent a lot of time talking to the fans over the years before that. But also it was the case that A New Dawn didn't overwrite anything. There is nothing that is in that book that could not have been in an EU novel, not a thing, because it was written as an EU novel.
Love it. Absolutely love it. DDoc, any quick thoughts or questions that you want to add in?
Well, see, A New Dawn is one that I have not read yet. So as I'm moving along here, but if you don't mind, if I bring back to Kenobi, I mean, do you have thoughts with the show coming up as to if, as to what they may pull from your book that they might add into that, whether, even like, I can't even help but to think, is his Eopia going to be the same name from your book? Like, I mean, because
yeah, I saw an article about that. Basically, I try not to publicly speculate on anything that's coming out in any of the franchises that I'm currently working with or have worked with. Because if I do speculate, then the next thing I know, there's some sort of a post on, usually it's one of the lesser lights in the internet sphere. Pick whatever you want it to be. John Jackson Miller not consulted on this, or John Jackson Miller says this will be this, or whatever. And I'm like, or John Jackson Miller reveals secrets about upcoming whatever. He must know something. And I'm like, guys, I'm just not playing that. There are things in the world that have not appeared yet that I know about, but I'm not going to say what or where or anything like that because it's not my place.
Perfect. Sometimes you forget the weight of the things you're talking about when we're having conversations with guys on here, because you really do feel like you're just in a room just talking Star Wars with guys. That's
one of the things that's been crazy over the years is I have known about a number of things over the years while they were in production. I mean, I was reading the Indiana Jones 4 script while they were shooting. While I was reading the script in Lucasfilm's offices, that was the day they started shooting. And so I've had the experience over the years in a lot of different places where, I've gotten to see fan speculation and how crazy wrong it can be at times. And if anybody ever wants to go back, nobody ever does, but if anybody ever wants to go back and fact check any site that does this sort of thing, the clickbaity kind of stuff. Let's just look at Kenobi. I mean, my mentions on social media have been exploding regularly for 8 years because there's going to be a Kenobi movie. There's going to be a Kenobi this. There's going to be a Kenobi that. There's going to be a Kenobi whatever. And it's sort of like, well, okay, we'll take the extra book sales. But
heck yeah.
but yeah, I mean, it's like they say with cable news, they've got 24 hours to fill. They really do have a lot of internet to fill, and so
Yeah.
I try not to go out too far either. I not only do I not really speculate on stuff that hasn't come out yet, but I also try not to actually do a lot in the way of I don't do reaction videos or anything on TV shows or anything like that, because again, they're no more than I would do a reaction review to somebody else's novel. That's not what I'm here for. I'm in solidarity with the writers in general anyway, so I'll never say I didn't like anything.
So I've got Mark Newbold, who's a friend of the show and just great guy with Star Wars Insider and StarWars.com and Fantha Tracks. If you're not subscribed to and listening to the Fantha Tracks podcast, you should, and you should go check out Mark's work on Star Wars Insider. I reached out to him and I said, "Hey, Mark, we're lucky enough to have John Jackson Miller on the show. Is there anything you would ask him?" Because he's like Nick and I, book fanatics, right? Reads everything. And he said, "By the way, to tell you, cheers." And then he said, I'd love to know if he ever wanted to return to the characters of the Knights of the Old Republic, or if he would enjoy a chance to tell more stories in the Knights of the Old Republic era.
Oh, heck yeah. I mean, that's I did a joke thing about a year ago for Life Day. I did like a 2-page script for the Knights of the Old Republic holiday special, which was just a goofy little thing. And my hope had been to get Brian Ching to draw it, but he didn't have time that month. But I was like, that's about the only fan fiction I've ever written was that. There's Zane Kirk is a young kid, and you can go a lot directions from there. We haven't even, we're still nowhere even close to the events of the video game in Zane's part of the timeline. Of course, it's tied to that game and that game's portion of the timeline in a lot of ways. But there are ways that you can rethink the ways that you can actually rethink that series where it makes more sense, or it makes sense rather, in the Clone Wars or the pre-Clone Wars era. Instead of the Masters having a vision about the events of the video game, the Masters have an event about a vision about the events of the movie, just you don't need a whole lot of changes there to make that fit. Who knows? There's the point of the matter is the work is still out there. The work still exists. There's a nice 1,334 page book that's available. 1,344 page book that's available. 7.5 pounds. and please buy them. Yeah.
No. Go ahead, Nick.
Well, so that was one of my. I'm glad you asked that question, Joe. And knowing the story now of how Kenobi started, where we're going back and forth and going, well, what about a Kenobi Western, right, or something like that? For me, that gets me. I'm curious, and you may be able to answer this. I'll preface this by saying that, but is there an area of Star Wars that to you would go, man, if I could write maybe in that timeline or write that character, man, I would jump at that.
Writing in the actual movie timeline would be fun. But I have done things way back in the distant past. I have done the Canto Bight book was during episode 8. But outside of the Star Wars Adventures annual that I did for 2018, that was the only thing I had ever written that had Luke, Leia, and the droids in it. I've had some Darth Vader. And I had a Darth Vader story. That was the very first thing I did. And then I did some short stories, with the Ray Sloan character, and those took place in the movie period. But in terms of a full length adventure or something like that with Han or Lando, haven't written Han at all yet. Haven't written Lando. It would be a blast yet. These things. haven't happened yet, but my passport is still got a bunch of stamps in it. I think my visa is still valid.
I'll ask a couple questions, quick, just bullet point ones you can answer quickly, and then I'll let DDoc answer or ask Brent Dykman, one of our regular co-hosts, his regular question. But first, what is there a character or a movie that is your favorite that stands out? You say this movie hands down, and this character's my guy.
I think Empire Strikes Back, was sort of peak fandom for me, because I mean that was, I was 12 years old. They say the golden age is 12. That was when I was consuming everything I could get my hands on, and it's in the middle of the story, so there's still the excitement about what's coming up, and that was also when I was really getting back into comics again after having sort of dropped out for a couple of years as a kid and wallowing in it in the years after that. So yeah, Empire Strikes Back. I thought Lando was a very cool character because I like characters that are that can have some nuance to them. He's that can be sort of there calculating the what's in this for me kind of thing going on. I mean, obviously my Griff character in Knights of the Old Republic is sort of that, and so yeah, I would say he's probably my favorite from that batch of movies.
Gotcha. DDoc, hit him up.
All right, so there's an ongoing question every guest we always have on, and I know Brent does this spiel better than me, but there's something to Count Dooku's lightsaber hilt with the curve to it where it's been made fun of, I guess, over time. But we always ask every guest, what is your favorite lightsaber hilt in Star Wars?
Lightsaber hilt.
A lightsaber hilt. Somebody actually made me, and I can't reach it from here, but somebody actually made me the lightsaber for it's Zane Carrick's lightsaber from Knights of the Old Republic.
Really?
So,
That's awesome.
and obviously it's not a working lightsaber, but it's I have it here, and I'm surprised. I can't remember. It must have been mailed to me or given to me at a convention that I was within driving distance, because I can't exactly see how I would have gotten it back through security. But no, I actually never really thought that much about the lightsabers or really I would say the one thing that I there's a lot of different parts of Star Wars continuity that have been built up. The one thing that I pretty much ignored right out of the gate was the lightsaber forms, the combat forms.
Oh yeah.
I don't know anything about fencing, and I know I can't fake it. And so, when I wrote the Knight Errant novel, I made it clear that she did her own thing. And so I was not having to, circle through these square dance moves of, she went into a whatever posture, and then this, and then that. It's fun for the 5 readers who know what that is. And then if you get it wrong, it angers those 5 readers.
Oh gosh. Well, I'll tell you what, I'm sure we're gonna have more questions coming. We won't keep you much longer. We've been going about an hour, but I just want to hit on a couple bullet points of some things that came across this week. And that way we can hit those. And as we're thinking of more questions real quick, we'll throw those your way. One, I think we all saw the post, Matt Lanter's wife posted on social media. Matt is one of the guys that I just think he did a great job with the Anakin Skywalker character in Clone Wars, and loved him in some other things he's done, Timeless and Jupiter's Legacy. But Matt, we don't know what's going on. He's in the hospital now, battling some things, had some surgeries. Just for all Star Wars fans out there, keep Matt and his family in your prayers, and keep sending good vibes and thoughts his way, because he seems like a great guy. And we were really hoping to try to meet up with him at the ICCC in Nashville, but I have a feeling he probably will not be able to attend that with the health things he's going through. So, your thoughts are with you there, Matt, and hopefully you're doing well. Friends of the show, I guess you would say, Mark Newbold, his birthday is this week, so we're going to give a shout out to mark it's his birthday. And then somebody I think we all look up to in the podcasting world, Jimmy Mack from Rebel Force Radio. His birthday was just the other day. And gosh, the podcasting world would be different if it wasn't for Jimmy and Jason and Rebel Force Radio. They are the godfathers of all this kind of stuff that we do. One other thing, Shadow of the Sith. I don't know if you guys saw this, the new book by Adam Christopher that's coming out. Luke's Journey to Exegol. It's coming out June 28th. Luke and Lando, just like it was mentioned in Rise of Skywalker. This happens 20 years after Return of the Jedi. So 10 or so years before The Force Awakens. In one of Luke's dreams, he sees Anakin Skywalker. So a lot going on with that book. Have any of you guys heard anything about that? Are you looking forward to it? I know I am. Nick.
Yeah, I saw it. And what got me was I was scrolling something the other day and I saw the cover art for it, which is really cool. Like it looks awesome. And true or false, it's in between, like it's a lead up to Rise of Skywalker, right? It's not, it would have to be because
it's the lead up to The Force Awakens.
Force Awakens, that's right. Excuse me.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So I think it's going to give us some more depth of just some things Luke's going through, but he's also on that search that we hear about in The Rise of Skywalker. So kind of excited about that.
Yeah.
And so
I'm hoping, Joe, that we get some more answers. Like, again, I feel like the drop off between, not that I'm dogging it, but the drop off between Return of the Jedi, what you see of Luke in Mando season 2, even, right? And where we meet Luke back at the end of Force Awakens, Last Jedi, there's so much that's happened between that. So I think filling in some of those, the comic books, like the Kylo Ren comic books, you see some of it. But I'd like to see some more.
100% agree. Yep. Another just quick bullet point. I have never played the Jedi Fallen Order, but the Cal Kestis lightsaber is now going to be available at Disney's Galaxy's Edge. So I know, John, you're not the biggest lightsaber discussion point person, but I guess that's a big deal. I have yet to play that game, but there's a lot of people excited about that. DDoc, go ahead.
I think it may have already sold out because they have released it. Because I saw they had people in line buying it, going out of Galaxy's Edge, holding it up, and I finally got to see the inside of that store, what it looks like, because I saw the pictures of the lines inside of that store. So I think it's out there, but that is an awesome lightsaber hilt in itself because it's damaged from what happens in the beginning of the game and everything with him. It's really cool.
Okay.
Well, in true or false, DDoc, it's not actually Cal Kestis' lightsaber hilt. It's his master's.
Yeah. I want to say, was it damaged from his master with what happened in that? Now that I'm thinking about it, I need to replay the game. But yeah, it's a cool lightsaber hilt because the grips on it are kind of melted off and damaged on the bottom, and you can kind of see the wires and everything inside of it. So
well, it's a double-bladed lightsaber.
Yeah, I guess it was split like in half, right? Yeah.
It's very cool.
Nice. Well, I will get my first view of it when I see it because I never play the game. So, John, I'll ask you, have you paid attention to, do you know who Black Chrysanthemum is, or just Chrysanthemum?
Yeah, this is the Wookiee, right?
Yeah.
It's in the episodes that I have not seen yet.
In the episodes you have not seen, but I guess he's in plenty of comics and other stories with Dr. Aphra's story. He is, I'm sure, because of the popularity of what's going on with the Dr. Aphra stories and then the Book of Boba Fett. Chrysanthemum is getting his own one-shot comic through Marvel and Star Wars Tales that'll be out May 4th. So that's cool. It seems like everybody likes that character, so that's kind of a cool little item there. And then my son Joey asked me on a whole different topic. He and I'll ask you real quick, John, have you watched any of the Bad Batch, the animated series?
That's another one that's on the list.
That's okay, because I'm not revealing anything, but I just figured I'd ask before I threw this out there. He's asking, hey, have you guys heard any more on any kind of delays with it? But one of his things was Bad Batch happens after Revenge of the Sith, before the Andor series. So he said, do you think we'll ever see any of the Bad Batch in Kenobi or Andor or any of those stories that are coming up? Because maybe around on that timeline. DDoc, Nick, any thoughts on, will we see any of those characters since they're all based off Tamura Morrison's look? Gosh, there we go. Stutter over that a little bit. Any thoughts if they'll show up in either Andor or Kenobi?
I would hope they do, because their clone armor is incredible, and just if we could see that in live action, I mean, that would be totally amazing to see. And I mean, they're like, I don't know, I just think they're just an awesome little crew. They really are, and I hope that the next season of it comes sooner than later, because it's definitely an interesting plot line, and it holds a lot of weight to me, and what's going to happen with their storyline as far as their section of Star Wars. Where are they going to go, and it would be incredible to see them show up in one of these live action shows.
Gotcha.
Brent Dykman has poisoned the well for me. And I say that, John, he's one of our co-hosts, and his whole shtick all the time is just, I want new. Don't go back to the same well over and over and over again. And for a long time, I was like, man, bring on the Easter eggs, man. Like, the more that you can drop in, the better. At the same point, as much as I love Bad Batch, from what we've heard out of this Andor series, where, we're going to get all these, there's 300 some named characters that are going to be in this show. To me, I actually hope that they don't do it. And if they do, they could tie it in a cool, like, mention without having to actually show them, which I think would be just as fun for everyone who follows the Bad Batch and doesn't, I would say this, especially Mando and Book of Boba Fett, there were so many moments where you're like, man, that's awesome. And the person who doesn't know anything about Star Wars is watching it, and they're like, yeah, why is that awesome? And then you, like, explain it to them, and you're like, oh, well, Cad Bane, and this is why this is, it's cooler than you think. Like, I would like to see them kind of come out the gates with Andor, which Rogue One had such a serious tone to it, even with the callback, kind of Easter eggs they do. I'd like to see them follow in step a little bit with that, and surprisingly not have Bad Batch show up about that. I saw one the other day actually too that said, do we see Cal Kestis show up in Andor as well too? Because I would still be in that time period. And I go, man, let them live in their own lane. I don't know.
Sure.
To me, it
Driving
feels more fun.
Yeah. Well, we've hit on a bunch of Star Wars stuff. We bug you about Star Wars, John, mostly. If you had to look at all the work you've done, the fandoms that you have, let's just take Marvel, the MCU, for example. I'm a Captain America guy. Like, that's my guy in the Marvel universe. Do you have, I know you've written Iron Man, but in the Marvel universe, just to take us off Star Wars here as we get closer to the end of the show, are there some Marvel characters, books, storylines, anything that stand out to you that you like the best?
By other folks. Yeah.
Yes. But I mean,
oh yeah. But,
fandom.
oh gosh,
Yeah.
there's just a whole lot. That's I was a fan of certainly many years of Amazing Spider-Man, Captain America. I think I wrote my first letter to Captain America, the first one that was published. Iron Man, when I had the chance to write, I just dove at writing Iron Man because I really wanted to. There are just a variety of other things out there. X-Men. I've the Chris Claremont, John Byrne era X-Men was really something else. There's just all sorts of things. Marvel published a book which was not owned by Marvel, but it was by Jim Starlin, who created Thanos and all these other characters. Marvel did a book called Dreadstar, and Dreadstar is more or less one of the guiding lights for Knights of the Old Republic when I was writing it, because I wanted something that had that kind of feel to it that was in that series. That was published by Marvel's Epic line in the 1980s, and of course, when I finally got to write for Marvel, it was a book for the second iteration of Epic in 2003. That was when I wrote the book called Crimson Dynamo. Certainly, no, I've got a ridiculous number of comic books, and the majority of them are Marvel. So that's
Okay.
well, not the well, I say the plurality of them are Marvel. There we go.
Okay.
Not more than half.
What about some of the work you've done that's not Star Wars related, whether it's Star Trek, whether it's Iron Man, whether it's some of the other things you mentioned throughout your list there, Indiana Jones and just down the list, Battlestar Galactica. Is there something where you stand out and say, this right here was some of my best work, or that I'm most proud of that's not Star Wars related?
Well, that Battlestar Galactica series a couple of years ago that won the Dragon Award that year at Dragon Con. The Dragon Con that we didn't actually get to go to because there wasn't one. That was a case where that was just that was pure fun. I mean, that was something I didn't do for the money. That was something I did because it completed the trifecta for 10-year-old me, of Star Wars, Star Trek, and that. The Picard novel that is out now, the Rogue Elements novel, which is in hardcover now, it comes out in trade paperback in June, and has a really just wonderful audiobook. That's another one where I got done with that, and I said that's the most fun I've ever had writing a book. And it's another one where I just cannot see what I would have done differently with it. And just some various other things. I wrote a few stories for the Simpsons comics, and those were just a joy in every way, shape, and form. Just getting to write something which is all about the jokes. That made me very happy.
Good. Nick, or DDoc, sorry, DDoc.
Yeah, I just thought of this as you were talking. As an author, do you make a connection with the person who would do your audiobook before they record it, and almost talk about the tones of certain areas and how they should do it?
I talked to the producer of the audiobook, and so she usually is able to tell me what who's going to be performing it. I have an idea of the range of the person, and of course Robert Petkoff, who has done most of my Trek novels, has unlimited range. When I did my Prey trilogy, there are about 150 characters in it, including at least 5 Klingon women, and he made them all sound different. And I will give every so often a bit of direction for the character, kind of what they should sort of sound like. But his work, Jonathan Davis, who did the Kenobi audiobook, but also did the audiobook for Canto Bight. I just could not have imagined the range of characters he's got, the characters he does in Canto Bight. I feel like I'm watching a cartoon that has because the characters sound so animated, and it's just an absolute blast. They put so much time into it to be in a room for a week more or less recording. It's January Lavoie did my the Die Standing novel that I did for Star Trek, and also has done stuff over at Star Wars. She's read my stories for the Certain Point of View books. These are just very talented people, and one thing I look forward to doing at some point. Both Star Wars and Star Trek are now doing audio dramas.
Mm-hmm.
They've done a couple for Star Wars. They just had the first one come out for Star Trek, and I think that would be fun to do at some point.
We had the blessing of having Jonathan Davis come on our show just in the last month or so, and not only was he just a fabulous guest, but he took us deep into how the process goes. And Mark Thompson, who does a lot of the other Star Wars books, he's been a guest, and he's just, both those guys are absolutely great.
Mark did a New Dawn.
Yes.
So
that's right. But Jonathan, when I said, hey, would you mind just doing something saying, welcome to Rule the Galaxy or whatever, he did it as Neil Diamond.
Good Lord.
So we have a Neil Diamond buffer for some reason and he thought that was amusing, and it was great because I'm sitting there and I'm like, what the heck is this? But I actually keep it on my phone and play it just for a quick kick every now and then. But you talk about
as long as he hasn't closed by saying turn on your heart light.
no. But you talk about doing the trilogy or doing the what you just mentioned before about doing Star Trek, Star Wars, and Battlestar Galactica.
Yeah.
Having you on, having Jonathan on, having Mark Thompson on. We want to get Drew Karpyshyn on from the Bane novels because we love his work there. And daggone it, I'm going to push Mr. Zahn because he's going to be at the ICCC, and I'm just going to say, give me 5 minutes, Tim, because I that's the books that changed and brought me way back into Star Wars again. So that, and then bringing it, I've got your Kenobi right next to his trilogy of the Heir to the Empires on my shelf, and it's just something that means something to me. How important those books are to the Star Wars. People don't realize that books can be that important. They think that 11 movies, things like that, but certain books like that stand out to me. The Han Solo trilogy from the 70s, the Lando trilogy from the early 80s, those things stick with me. And your book and that Thrawn trilogy means something. So if I could ever talk, if you ever just want to reach out with a text to either one of them, say, hey, this Joe guy, he's not bad. Why don't you give him 5 minutes? But yeah, that's our trilogy here, because those are the people that mean a lot in the Star Wars world. You guys, I'm rambling again. Nick or DDoc, before we go, as we start closing up shop, go ahead, DDoc.
I was saying you're good. You can go.
Oh no, I'm
Sorry.
good. Nick, did you have anything more? No, okay. John, so I'm going to ask you a couple things. The quickest way for people to find you on social media is, go ahead and give them out your address.
My website with behind the scenes notes on most of my stories is farawaypress.com. I am on Twitter, JJM Faraway. I am John Jackson Miller on Facebook and on Instagram. My comics history website is comicron.com, COMICHRON.com. That also has a Twitter under that name, and also a Facebook page, and even a Patreon. Coming up, I've got, as I've mentioned, we have that Kenobi reprinting coming up April 5th. We've got the Picard paperback coming out in June. Kenobi gets another hardcover from Barnes and Noble with a leather cover. It's a bind up where it's Kenobi plus Approaching Storm, I believe, by Alan Dean Foster.
Mm-hmm.
That comes out in September. That's part of their collection of the prestige gift books. And then I have a bunch of stuff which hasn't been announced yet. Star Trek Mission Chicago, second weekend in April. Third weekend in April, I'll be at Indianapolis for Indianapolis Comic-Con and various other locations as well.
We're going to have to try to meet you then, because we will be in town that's where we're from, except for DDoc.
Very good.
So you know how to track me down. I know how to track you down. I might bug you and say, can I buy you a coffee and just shake your hand? Because that would be great for you taking the time on this. I personally, you know what, before I even start into it, DDoc, Nick, closing thoughts from either one of you guys.
Just super grateful, John. Thanks so much for coming on and giving us a few minutes to pick your brain. Thank you for writing, and keep it up, man.
Sure thing.
Yep.
Yeah, pretty much reiterating what Nick said. I mean, it's just awesome that we get to sit down and talk to the people who write these amazing stories for Star Wars, and just, give us even deeper connection into the world. So thanks for joining us tonight.
So glad to be here.
You got it. Well, we will take all of John's Twitter, websites, Comic-Con, and Faraway Press, both get all that out in the show notes, and tag it in our Twitter messages when we announce the show and everything like that. We'll also have him obviously on our YouTube channel, so we'll put that on there if you check us out on YouTube. John, from me, from the other co-hosts, again, to reiterate it's a true pleasure to have someone who is this close to Star Wars taking the time. You don't know us from Adam, and you've been so kind to take the time to give it to us when you could be doing other things, obviously writing, because that's pretty much what you do. So thank you from the bottom of my heart and their hearts, and just for being a part of the show and our our hope is, obviously we can't make it to Celebration this year, but maybe at that Indie Comic Con, just to come up, say thanks again, and shake your hand for all the work you do. It has meant a lot to a lot of people, and we hope that everyone who's listening does go buy the Picard paperback in June and the Kenobi re-release on April 5th. But thanks again. We appreciate it, and we hope you'll come back again sometime and join us.
Okay. May the force live long and prosper.
That's a good combo right there. For Joe, for Nick, for DDoc, and for John, thanks again for chapter 131 of Rule of the Galaxy. And follow us at Rule of the Galaxy SW on Twitter, Rule of the Galaxy SW at gmail.com, and just Rule of the Galaxy on YouTube and Facebook. And until next week, may the force be with you.